Hello everyone, and thanks for joining me for West Coast Weather Update. We've got a lot of ground to cover, so let's get right into it. Southern California is in the middle of the hottest stretch of the year so far. A red flag warning is stretched across huge parts of the region through Friday afternoon and out in the eastern Pacific. A weakening tropical storm Isel could still send a plume of moisture into the state by Thursday and Friday. On top of all that, there are early signs of a real cool down for the weekend. So we've got heat, fire, danger, thunderstorm potential, and a pattern change all in the same forecast period. Let's break it down piece by piece, starting with the heat, because that's the most immediate and most dangerous part of this setup. A big, strong ridge of high pressure has parked itself right over the southwest, and it is squeezing out some genuinely dangerous heat across Southern California. The National Weather Service says we are in the peak days of this event right now, with afternoon highs running 10 to 15 degrees above normal for late August, and that's significant because California is already warm for this time of year. 10 to 15 degrees on top of that gets you into record challenging territory in a lot of spots. Let's talk specific numbers, because that's what matters if you're planning your day. Downtown Los Angeles and Pasadena are looking at highs right around 100 degrees, with some forecasts nudging just above that mark through Wednesday and Thursday. Out toward Riverside, we're talking about 107 degrees. The valleys and the Inland Empire are sitting in the 105-degree range. And if you're out toward the deserts, the Coachella Valley, the San Gorgonio Pass near Banning, the San Diego County deserts, you are looking at an extreme heat warning, with highs forecast between 110 and 115 degrees. Overnight lows in those desert areas aren't offering much relief either, staying in the mid-80s to mid-90s, which is 5 to 10 degrees above normal for nighttime lows. That matters because when the overnight low doesn't drop much, your body in your home never really gets a chance to cool down before the next hot day starts. Even the coast isn't fully exempt. We'll still see a noticeable warm-up along immediate beach communities compared to a typical August, though obviously nothing like what's happening inland. Now, I want to spend a minute on something that doesn't always make it into a typical weather hit, but it really matters right now. Wet bulb globe temperature, or WBGT. This measurement combines heat, humidity, wind, and sunlight to estimate how much stress your body is actually under, and it's a much better predictor of heat illness risk than the plain old thermometer reading. Right now, wet bulb globe temperatures are pushing into the high to extreme categories across Los Angeles, Burbank, Orange County, and San Diego. That's a serious number. It means the combination of heat and, in some cases, lingering humidity is putting real physiological stress on the body, even in spots where the actual air temperature might only be in the 90s. Who needs to pay the closest attention here? Outdoor workers, construction crews, landscapers, agricultural workers, anyone doing physical labor outside during afternoon hours. Athletes, especially with fall sports practices ramping up this week, coaches should be strongly considering modified schedules, more water breaks, and shifting practice times to the morning or evening. And children, who regulate body heat less efficiently than adults and are at elevated risk. Especially in vehicles, and I cannot stress this enough, never, ever leave a child or a pet in a parked car, even for a few minutes, even with the windows cracked. Interior car temperatures can climb by 20 degrees in just 10 minutes. If you take one thing away from this segment, let it be this. Treat the next 48 to 72 hours like a genuine public health event, because that's what it is. Drink water throughout the day, even before you feel thirsty. Limit strenuous outdoor activity to early morning or after sunset. If you don't have reliable air conditioning, identify a cooling center or an air-conditioned public space near you now before you need it. And check in on elderly relatives, neighbors, or anyone who might be more vulnerable. Heat is one of the deadliest weather hazards we deal with every year. And a lot of those deaths are preventable with a phone call or a quick visit. Now, let's connect that heat directly to fire danger, because the two are inseparable right now. A red flag warning has been in effect since 10 a.m. Tuesday and runs through 3 post-meridian. Friday, across a large stretch of Southern California, including the San Gabriel Mountains and foothill communities, and out towards Santa Barbara County, that includes the interior mountains, the adjacent foothills, and the Cuyama Valley. Here's why fire officials are so concerned. You've got triple-digit heat, you've got very low relative humidity, you've got deep daytime mixing heights that can pull dry air down to the surface, and you've got locally gusty winds layered on top of all of it. Put those 4 ingredients together and you get conditions that are practically engineered for rapid fire growth. If a fire does start under these conditions, officials are warning about the potential for extreme fire behavior, including large, plume-dominated fires, which are fires so intense they generate their own weather, including erratic wind shifts that make them extremely difficult and dangerous to fight. There's an added wrinkle for southern Santa Barbara County specifically. Forecasters are watching for brief but critical fire weather during the late afternoon and evening hours. Driven by gusty, sundowner winds, those are the downslope winds that come off the Santa Ynez Mountains in the evening, combining with the hot, dry conditions already in place. That elevated risk window is expected to continue through Saturday night in that specific area. So, if you're in the Santa Barbara foothills, that's worth keeping an eye on even after the broader red flag warning expires elsewhere. Practical takeaways if you're in or near any of these warning areas. Avoid any activity that could throw a spark. That means no debris burning, no dragging trailer chains, no using power equipment like weed whackers or chainsaws during the warning period, especially in dry grass or brush. If you live in a high-risk zone, now is a good time to double-check your defensible space around the home and make sure you have a go bag and an evacuation plan ready, just in case. And if you do see smoke, report it immediately rather than assuming someone else already has. Let's shift now to the eastern Pacific tropics, because there's a lot happening out there, and one storm in particular has direct implications for our forecast here in California. Tropical storm Isel formed a few days ago and briefly threatened to strengthen into a hurricane. As of the latest advisory, Isel was located a few hundred miles west-southwest of the southern tip of Baja California, with maximum sustained winds around 60 miles per hour, moving toward the west-northwest. The National Hurricane Center's forecast has Isel likely to weaken through the rest of the week as it runs into higher wind shear, drier air, and cooler ocean water, the kind of environment that tends to choke off tropical systems rather than feed them. Some forecasters expect Isel to dissipate entirely by this weekend. So why are we even talking about a weakening tropical storm hundreds of miles offshore? Because a tropical system doesn't need to make landfall or even stay intact to influence our weather here. As Isel moves northwest and interacts with the broader upper-level pattern, forecasters are watching for a plume of tropical moisture to get pulled north into California, arriving Thursday into Friday. Here's how that's expected to play out regionally. The Sierra Nevada is likely to see the best chance for measurable precipitation out of this mountain terrain. Tends to wring more moisture out of a plume like this than the valleys do. From there, we could see showers and even a few thunderstorms reach into the Sacramento Valley, the Greater Bay Area, the Central Coast, and the coastal ranges. Most model guidance keeps the bulk of any shower activity generally north of Point Conception, so areas farther south, closer to Los Angeles and San Diego, are less likely to see much from this particular moisture surge, though a stray high cloud shield and slightly higher humidity wouldn't be surprising even there. I want to be clear about expectations here. This is not shaping up to be a soaking rain event for most of the state. Think increased cloud cover, maybe a few scattered raindrops in favored areas. And more importantly, from a hazard standpoint, the potential for thunderstorms, mainly over the mountains and higher terrain. And that thunderstorm potential is the part I'd actually flag as the bigger concern. When you get thunderstorms forming in an environment where the ground is bone dry from weeks of heat, you can end up with what's called dry lightning storms that produce lightning strikes with little to no rainfall reaching the ground to go with it. That is one of the most efficient wildfire starting mechanisms there is, because the lightning provides the ignition source while the surrounding fuels stay parched and ready to burn. So, even though this tropical moisture might sound like good news after a brutal heat stretch, fire officials will be watching Thursday and Friday closely for new fire starts tied to any storms that develop, particularly across the Sierra and other higher terrain locations. If you're in the mountains during this window and you hear thunder, that's your cue to get to lower, more sheltered ground and stay weather aware. Worth a quick footnote on the bigger tropical picture. Iselle isn't alone out there. This is an active stretch for the Eastern Pacific, with additional systems being tracked and a general expectation of continued tropical activity into next week. We'll keep monitoring that basin and let you know if anything else develops that could matter for weather. So, when does this heat actually break? Here's the good news. Relief is on the way, and it looks fairly solid in the short term. Forecasters are pointing to a trough, digging into the western United States that should usher in a meaningful cool down starting Saturday and continuing into early next week. A stronger onshore flow is expected to develop, which will help scour out the hot air mass that's been sitting over the region. Temperatures should drop back down close to seasonal norms for a lot of Southern California. By early next week, a very welcome change after several days of dangerous, potentially record-challenging heat. Now, the longer range picture is a little murkier, and I want to be upfront about that rather than overpromise. Beyond the weekend cool down, some model guidance suggests another ridge of high pressure could try to rebuild as we head toward early September. If that happens, we could see temperatures trend warmer again after that brief break. I'd treat that as a lower confidence signal for now it's the kind of thing that's still 10 plus days out, which is right at the edge of reliable forecasting for a specific temperature outcome. We'll keep tracking it and give you updates as the pattern becomes clearer. But for now, plan on genuine relief this weekend, with some uncertainty about whether the heat tries to return afterward. Let's pull it all together. The most urgent, most immediate concern is the combination of dangerous heat and elevated fire danger. And that holds through Friday afternoon across much of Southern California. If you're in a red flag warning area, treat it seriously. This is the kind of setup that has historically preceded fast-moving, destructive fires. Layered on top of that, we've got Tropical Storm Iselle sending a shot of moisture north into the state Thursday into Friday, which could bring some welcome cloud cover and isolated showers to northern and central California, but also raises the risk of dry lightning, and new fire starts in the mountains. And then looking toward the weekend, a trough should finally break the heat for a good chunk of California, even if there are some early hints that warmth could try to rebuild again as we approach September. Bottom line for tonight, stay hydrated, stay cool, avoid unnecessary outdoor exertion during peak afternoon hours through Friday, be extremely cautious with anything that could spark a fire, and if you're heading into the mountains later this week, keep an eye on the sky for building heat. That's tonight's California weather update. As always, we'll be tracking this heat wave, the fire weather threat, and that tropical moisture closely over the next few days. So check back for updates as new information comes in. And a quick reminder, we're running a September weather station giveaway. If you send in a photo of yourself wearing our merchandise, you'll be entered to win. Links to that, along with our Patreon and our weather station offers, are down in the description. Thanks for watching, stay safe out there, and we'll see you in the next update.